All right. Give y'all time to check in. All right. Shalom, Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai B'Katham to the brothers. Shalom, Yahweh Shema Alathan Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai to the sisters. All right, we are the Israelite School Universal Practical Knowledge. Started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohanan. All right. We are not affiliated with any other Israelite group nor any other Christian organization. All right. Today is the Isupk Virginia history class. Make sure when you're signing in, put your name, your city, and your state. All right. Make sure you put your name, your city, and state. Make sure you put your name, your city, and your state. All right. This is a very important class to come in, man. All right. The history class is very important to attend. We need to know history, right? Like right now, us brothers and sisters in the Isupk, we are making history. All right. In the Israelite School Universal Practical Knowledge, if you are a brother and you are a sister in the school, or you are coming to classes religiously, all right, you are coming to classes religiously, frequently, whatever the case may be, you are making history. All right, you are making history. Not many. Listen, we're bringing our culture back. That's history. That's historic, right? So-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans keeping God's laws, statutes, and commandments. That's us bringing back our history. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing, man. And we have to understand that too. All right, make sure you put your name, your city, and your state. Don't forget, put your name, your city, and your state. And make sure if you're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it may be, make sure you put your name, your city, and your state. All right, make sure you check in. All right. Make sure you check in and sign in, all right? All right, let's get to it. All right. Right now, does anybody know what feast we're in right now? If anybody was keeping tabs, all right? Does anybody know what feast we're in at the moment? Anybody know? Anybody online, anybody in class? What feast are we in at the moment? What feast are we in? See if anybody knows. Anybody paying attention? All right. Does anybody know what feast we're in? Anybody? Give y'all some time. Not the Passover. That was a good try though, but not the Passover. Not the Passover. But you're close. That was a good try, but not the Passover. Anybody know what class we're in right now? So like not what class. What feast are we in right now? Anybody know? Anybody? Want to give it one more try? Anybody? What feast are we in right now? Make sure if you're in class, make sure you put your name, your city, and your state, all right? Put your name, your city, and your state. What feast are we in right now? Make sure if you're on YouTube, all right, or even on Facebook, share this class. Share it. Make sure you share it, All right. Do not forget to share. All right. We must share this class. All right. Please, Biblical Shah, meaning please, share this class. All right. All right. Share the class. Don't forget to share the class. All right. There we go. Share it all over. Share it on your Facebooks. Share it on any social media. Share it. All right. So right now we're in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. All right. That's the feast that we're in. All right. So right after the Passover. Right. So if you answered Passover, that was a good guess. That was a good try. But Passover was on that Saturday, and the Passover only lasts one day. All right. It's just one day. The Feast of Unleavened Bread is for 7 days, and it starts directly after the Passover. All right. So it starts directly after the Passover. All right. That's exactly what it is. All right. So what we're going to do is, right now we're in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. All right. We're in the feast. And the reason why we pulled 2 Chronicles chapter 30, because this kind of touches bases on the nation of Israel keeping the Passover and keeping unleavened bread in 2 Chronicles chapter 30. And we're also going to get real deep into really learning the history and going into the Apocrypha more, and going more into like 1 Kings, 2 Kings, and 1 Samuel, and 2 Samuel, and 1 Chronicles and 2 Chronicles. We need to get more and hit, and we need to learn and go over this history, because this is our history. All right, those are our records. All right, if everybody understands. So we're gonna get 2 Chronicles chapter 30. All right. Now, does anybody know? Can anybody list any of the northern tribes online or even in class? Do you guys have does anybody know any of the northern tribes? Does anybody know? You guys can answer, but I'm gonna get 2 Chronicles. I'm gonna start at verse 30. All right. All right. 2 Chronicles chapter 30 verse 1. And Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah. All right. So now it says, and Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah. All right. Now Hezekiah, at this time, King Hezekiah was king over Judah. All right. At this time, Hezekiah was king over Judah. All right. He was Malak. He was Malak Al, right? Yahweh. All right. I said in the Hebrew, king over Judah. All right. So Hezekiah was king over Judah. He ruled at this time over the kingdom of Judah, which was the southern kingdom. All right. And so Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah. Now it says Israel and Judah. All right. Does anybody online, does anybody know why it said Israel and Judah? Does anybody know that history? Does anybody know why the Lord said in 2 Chronicles chapter 1, and Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah? What was the difference between Israel and Judah? I thought Judah was Israel. Right? I thought Judah was Israel. So why did it say Israel and Judah? Anybody? Why did it say Israel and Judah, even though I thought Judah was Israel? Anybody know? Anybody know that answer? Anybody want to give it a shot? Why did the Lord say that? Anybody? Why did it say Israel and Judah? All right. Why did it say Israel and Judah? Something that we have to know. Something we have to break down. Why did it say Israel and Judah? If you don't know, you can also type I don't know. Okay, Most High Christ, I got that. Alright, if you don't know, it's alright. Anybody know? Alright. You guys can still give the answer if y'all know, but I'm going to give y'all the answer, alright? So the reason why it said, and Hezekiah sent to all Israel. Okay, no sweat, no sweat. And Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah. Okay, so I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break it down real easily here. Alright? The 12 tribes of Israel, right? The 12 tribes of Israel, right? So you have the 12 tribes of Israel, which are Judah, right? Benjamin, right? I said almost Israel, right? Judah, Benjamin, Levi, right? You have, let's see, I want to get it right. I like it in order, all right? I like it. So you have, I like to do everything in order here. So now, okay. So what you have here, right? So you have Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Simeon, Zebulun, Ephraim, Manasseh, Gad, Reuben, Asher, Naphtali, Issachar, right? Right, Asher, Gad, Reuben. Those are part of the 12 tribes of Israel. Most High in Christ, you're absolutely correct, William. Asher, Gad, and Reuben. These are all people of the 12 tribes of Israel. Right? So you got Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Simeon, Zebulun, Ephraim, Manasseh, Gad, Reuben, Asher, Naphtali, Issachar. These are the 12 tribes of Israel. So those are the Israelites. All right? Each tribe forms a part of the Israelites, the 12 tribes of Israel. The nation of Israel, right, consists of 12 tribes. So the nation of Israel as a whole, right, consists of 12 tribes. From Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Simeon, Zebulun, Ephraim, Manasseh, Gad, Reuben, Asher, Naphtali, and Issachar, right? And now the Lord said, and Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah. Now, if the nation of Israel consists of all 12 tribes, right? The question was, why did it say and Judah if Judah is one of the tribes that consist of the nation of Israel? It's because not too much after King Solomon's rulership. This takes place after King Solomon. Right? This takes place after King David. This takes place after King Solomon. Right? And what's going on is after King Solomon, there was a split in the kingdom. The kingdom was split into half. Right? It was split in half. And so now, because it was split in half, you have the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Right? The southern kingdom was known as the kingdom of Judah, which consists of Judah, Benjamin, and remnants of Levi. Now the reason why the southern kingdom, right? The reason why the southern kingdom consisted of remnants of Levi, because the tribe of Levi didn't have its own inheritance among our land. All right, we'll also go over that. Maybe not this class, but we'll more so focus on that next history class. All right. the Levites, right? The Levites, the tribe of Levi, did not have an inheritance, right, throughout the kingdom of Israel, among the nation of Israel, because they were the Levitical priesthood. They were the priesthood. They were the priests. So they had to be in every section of Israel. There had to be Levites among Judah. There had to be Levites among Benjamin. There had to be Levites among Simeon. There had to be Levites among Zebulun. There had to be Levites among Ephraim, among Manasseh, among Gad, amongst Reuben, amongst Asher, amongst Naphtali, amongst Issachar, right? Like this is what had to happen. Now it's very important to understand history too, because this is about the Bible, right? These are things that you have to know, all right? Because the simplest things you can cut Christians with, all right? This right here, history, knowing the history of the Bible can cut almost, knowing the history of the Bible and the history of the Israelites, you can pretty much destroy any religion on the earth. You can destroy Judaism, and you can destroy Christianity, and you can sure as hell destroy Islam. Those are one of the three. Those are these are the three main religions on the earth. All right, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. And just knowing the history of the Bible, you can understand everything in order and realize, hey, this is the truth and this is not. So, and Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah, but the Levites were among all the nation, right? So Judah, the kingdom of Judah consisted of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, remnants of Levi, right? Now, then you had the northern kingdom. The northern kingdom was Israel, was known to be Israel, and they had an Ephraim. Ephraim ruled over, right? We'll get into that in another history class. But Ephraim ruled over the northern kingdom, all right, which is your so-called Puerto Ricans, right? So you have, right, so Ephraim, they ruled over, right, the northern kingdom. And the northern kingdom considered the northern kingdom consisted of Simeon, Zebulun, Ephraim, Manasseh, Gad, Reuben, Asher, Naphtali, and Issachar, and remnants of Levi. Right? It consisted of remnants of Levi. It did. Why? Because the Levites were everywhere among the nation of Israel. The remnants of Levi, right? Remnants of Levi, because the Levi were the priests, and they were throughout the nation of Israel. They had no inheritance to a specific section of the land. All right. All right. So let's continue reading. And Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah. So this is King Hezekiah. And he sent something to all of Israel and Judah. So to the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. To the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. Right? And wrote letters also to Ephraim and Manasseh, that they should come to the house of the Lord, right? Salakia. They should come to the house of the Most High at Jerusalem, right? So he wrote. So this is what he sent to all of Israel, all the northern kingdom, and to Judah, which is the southern kingdom. All right. King Hezekiah sent a letter telling the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom, or the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, to come to Jerusalem. Right? To come to Jerusalem. Right? So it says that they should come to the house of the Most High at Jerusalem. Right? To keep the Passover unto the Most High, right, of Israel, the Most High power of Israel. So this is King Hezekiah, right? King Hezekiah sent a letter to Israel and to Judah, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, right? to come to the Lord's Passover in Jerusalem. Now, does anybody know, anybody online, does anybody know why did he say come to Jerusalem? Anybody know? Does anybody know? Anybody know why was it Jerusalem? Why was it Jerusalem? Anybody know? Anybody online? Give it a shot. Anybody want to give it a shot? Why was it come to Jerusalem? Anybody know? Anybody know? If not, I'm going to continue reading, all right? All right, I'm going to continue reading if not. All right? So, all right, so King Hezekiah, right? He sent to all Israel and Judah to come to Jerusalem to keep the Lord's Passover. All right? Verse 2, for the king had taken counsel, and his princes, and all the congregation in Jerusalem, to keep the Passover in the second month. So now, in the second month, right? Oh, it's Tawab. It's Tawab, Akwab. It's Tawab. So now, make sure you put your name, city, and state. All right, no sweat. It's all right, sis. All right, it's all right, Akwab. Now, it says, for the king had taken counsel. So King Hezekiah, he took counsel, right? And his princes and all the congregation, right? The situation at hand is when the Lord is saying, for the king had taken counsel and his princes and all the congregation in Jerusalem to keep the Passover in the second month. Right there in verse 2, that's talking about our government structure. All right? The congregation, the princes, the king taking counsel, right? This is all dealing with a government structure. The nation of Israel, we had a government structure. So-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. I may have not said this in the beginning of class, but if you are so-called black, Hispanic, or Native American, you are God's chosen people. You are the people of the Bible that God chose. We are the Israelites according to the Bible. So-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. We also have to understand too, we had a king of our own. We had a government of our own. We had a society of our own. We had a land, a country of our own. We had cities and towns of our own, right? We once had that, right? Right here in the Bible, we once had that. How amazing is that? That we once had something like that. We had something like what America has now. Their own government, their own ruler, right? Their own cities and towns, their states. We once had something like that as so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. We didn't have other nations and other races of people, right, policing us and ruling over us. We didn't have that, right? We didn't have that, and we'll also go over that too in some of the classes as well. But we didn't have that, all right? We didn't have that at all, all right? We didn't have other nations and races of people policing us and patrolling us. We had our own officers. We had our own captains and generals, right, that were part of God's government body to rule over so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Just like how the Isupk is doing now. We have generals, captains, and officers, right, that's a part of God's government body to rule over so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right? So we are to keep the Passover in the second month, all right? Verse 3, for they could not keep it at that time, because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, neither had the people gathered themselves together to Jerusalem. And it says, so now, usually, right, usually the Passover is held, right? Okay, usually the Passover is not kept in the second month. Usually Passover is kept in the first month. Passover, when we keep the Passover, that's actually how you know that it's the beginning of the year. Passover is actually what dictates the beginning of the year. It was never January, right? It was never the winter solstice, right? It was never, New Year's in America, right? In our customs, in our heritage, in our traditions, right? According to the phases of the moon, right? According to all of that, right? We would keep the Passover, right? Usually in the first month. And that the Passover would signify that a year went past and that it's the beginning of the year. Passover is usually done in the springtime when everything is coming back, everything is renewing itself, everything is springing up. It's not falling down, it's not completely dead in the winter, it's springing back up, right? That's the beginning of the year, all right? For they could not keep it, verse 3, for they could not keep it at that time because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently. Now, what does it mean to sanctify themselves sufficiently? All right? Meaning to be sanctified is to be holy. All right? During this time, the priests, right? The priests were ordered, right, and ordained to be holy, meaning to be separate. The priests did certain things that most people of Israel would not do, like make sacrifices unto the Lord and know the majority of the law, to know the majority of God's laws, statutes, and commandments, right? So the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, meaning they weren't where they needed to be, right? They weren't where they needed to be and how the temple should be set up. Like, they just weren't all complete, right? They weren't all there, right? Not everything wasn't done the way it was supposed to be, right? Now, the reason why during this time, now let me give you a brief history, or like a recap. The reason why that the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, King Hezekiah during this time, this was during the captivity of the Assyrians. All right. So during this time, the Assyrians had the nation of Israel into captivity. All right. We were being oppressed at this time by the Assyrians. All right. This is during the time that, Salakia. I think it's slightly before, but like they're all around the same time period. All right. The northern kingdom, right? They were taken away by the Assyrians, and the southern kingdom was just being oppressed by the Assyrians. But we were all still in captivity. All right? We were all still in captivity. For they could not keep it at the time, because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently. Neither had the people gathered themselves together to Jerusalem. So now neither had the people gathered themselves together to Jerusalem. It was a custom for so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right, the Israelites according to the Bible. It was a custom of Israel coming to Jerusalem to keep feast days. It was a custom to do it, right? It was within our law to come to Jerusalem, right? It was within our records, I should say, to come to Jerusalem to keep the majority of the feast days that the Lord told us to keep, like unleavened bread, the Passover, the Feast of First Fruits, right? The Feast of Tabernacles, the Day of Atonement, right? These were the feast days that the Lord ordered us to keep, all right? And we would come to Jerusalem because it was like the main gathering point of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans to come to. It was like a pinnacle point where the nation of Israel would all come together, right? And serve the Most High together and not separately. All right. Verse 4. And the thing pleased the king and all the congregation. Right? And the thing pleased the king and all the congregation. Right? Now it pleased the king and all the congregation because they are about to keep the Lord's Passover. They're about to do the Lord's Passover. Even though we've been being oppressed and the Assyrians are oppressing us and killing us and murdering us and taking advantage of our brothers and sisters, right? And took our brothers and sisters out of their land, right? We are pleasant, right? All right. So the Lord is pleased. So it's like not the Lord is pleased. So the king and the congregation are pleased for this. Verse 5. So they established a decree to make proclamation throughout all Israel. So now, King Hezekiah and the congregation, right, and the princes, establish a decree, right, meaning this is something to do. This is what we're going to do as a race of people. This is something that we're going to do as a nation of people, right? All so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we are going to do this as a nation of people, all right? So they established a decree to make proclamation throughout all Israel, right? From Beersheba even to Dan, that they should come to keep the Passover unto the Most High power of Israel at Jerusalem. So it was a decree that all Israel, right, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right, so-called all blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right, all of them, including, so that's Judah, that's Benjamin, that's Levi, that's Simeon, that's Zebulun, that's Ephraim, that's Manasseh, that's Gad, that's Reuben, that's Asher, that's Naphtali, that's Isupk, right? That's all the 12. That's all Israel right there. It was a decree for all Israel, all so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans to come together and hold the Lord's Passover in Jerusalem. For they had not done it of a long time in such sort as it was written. Right? So it was, all right, so Salakia, because we haven't done the Passover for so long, for such a time during this time period, because we've been being oppressed by our oppressor. We were being oppressed by the Assyrians, right? Right? We as a nation of people, we need to come together and keep this Passover. That's why Hezekiah and the congregation was pleased. We needed this. We needed to see the brotherhood and the sisterhood among all so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. We need to see our brothers and come together and serve the Lord because of our oppression, because of what we go through, because of the hell that we go through. Just like right now, that so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we are being oppressed in America. We are going through hell in America, right? We are being oppressed by our oppressor in America. And we just got finished serving the Lord in Houston, Texas at the BH Ranch for the Lord's Passover. We just got finished serving the Lord. And we were able to see all of our brothers. We were able to see all of our sisters. We were able to see all of our family to come together to serve the Lord under one roof. That's what makes it so pleasing. That's why Hezekiah was so pleased in verse 4. That's why the congregation and the princes were so pleased in 2 Chronicles chapter 30 verse 4. Because we were able to see the brotherhood and the sisterhood in our family, our brothers, our sisters, coming together under one roof to serve the Lord. We were able to leave all the hell just for one day. Just for one day, we were able to come together and leave all the hell that we are going through. Right? Just for one day, we were able to leave all the hell that we go through. We were able to leave our slaveries. We were able to leave the wickedness of the world. We were able to leave all the wickedness and the sin of this filthy, disgusting society. And we were able to come together under one roof to serve the Most High and keep the Lord's Passover. That's pleasing. That's a beautiful sight. I say this all the time. If you want a glimpse of the kingdom of heaven, if you want a glimpse of what brotherhood and sisterhood truly looks like and what it actually is, come to the Lord's Passover next year. Come to the Lord's Passover. Come to the Lord's Passover next year and see a glimpse of the kingdom of heaven and how it would look like and how it would operate and how would it be. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, man. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. That's why in verse 4, and the thing pleased the king and all the congregation. It pleased them because we were going to keep the Lord's Passover. We were going to come together in Jerusalem and serve the Lord under one roof. We were able to leave all the hell that we've been through and leave all the wickedness and the sin that we see every day that we have to suffer. We have to suffer so much wickedness in America. We have to suffer the fact of homosexuality in America. That's something that we have to suffer. We have to suffer that. We have to tolerate homosexuality in America. America's law legalizes. America's law legalizes, right? It legalizes homosexuality. A man having sex with a man. A woman having sex with a woman. America legalizes prostitution. They legalize it. They legalize prostitution in America. No matter what spectrum you look at it, they legalize it. They legalize men having sex with a whole bunch of women and not keeping them. And women having sex with a whole bunch of men and just being whores and sluts and harlots. America accepts this. America legalizes this. And we as Israelites, we have to suffer it. But when we go to the Lord's Passover for just that one day out of the year, just that one day out of the year, we come to the Lord's Passover. We don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about seeing a homosexual at the Lord's Passover. You don't have to worry about seeing a man having sex with another man and a man kissing another man at the Lord's Passover. A man tugging down another man or a woman tugging down another woman and having sex with another woman. You don't have to see that at the Lord's Passover. You don't have to see our women being whores and dressing like whores and harlots and prostituting themselves at the Lord's Passover. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that at all. That's why the congregation and the princes and King Hezekiah were so pleased. right? Because we are going through oppression in the land of our forefathers, because this was taking place in Israel. We were being oppressed by the Assyrians, right? Police brutality, right? We don't have to worry about police brutality at the Lord's Passover. We don't have to suffer that. No officer of America is going to be able to come into the Lord's house, into the Lord's Passover, and kill any brother or sister of Israel. No police officer will ever be able to come into the Lord's Passover and kill and murder and gun down a black, Hispanic, or Native American. Nah, not at all. Not in the Lord's Passover. You may have to suffer that somewhere else throughout the years, but not at the Lord's Passover. That's why he was so pleased. That's why King Hezekiah and the princes and the congregation, we were pleased that we were going to serve the Lord. All right, at the Passover. All right. Verse 6. So the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and Judah. Right? So the post, meaning the people that are sending out the letters, right? Right? They went out and they sent all the letters throughout all Israel, right? Meaning throughout the northern kingdom, right? And throughout Judah, right? Meaning the southern kingdom, all right? And according to the commandment of the king, say, ye children of Israel. So to say, ye children of Israel, right? Ye children of Israel. It didn't say the so-called white man, right? It didn't say the so-called Chinese, right? It didn't say the Japanese. It didn't say the Russians. It didn't say the British. It didn't say the English. It didn't say the French or the Italians, the Polish or Swedish or the Scottish. It didn't say any of that. Or the East Indians or the Africans. It said ye children of Israel. Right? Turn again unto the most high power of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. So it said, turn back. Turn again unto the most high power of Abraham. Abraham is our forefather, right? Isaac is our forefather. Israel, referring to Jacob, is our forefather, right? These are our forefathers. And the Most High Power was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Once again, it's so important to know history. The God that the Muslims say that it's their God. Talk to any so-called black Muslim today. They say Allah and God are the same. But they can't be the same. Because Allah is the God over those Arabs, those Afghanistanians, and them Pakistanians, and those Iraq. Like Allah is the God over the people of Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Turkey, parts of Turkey, Saudi Arabia, right? That's who Allah is the God over. And apparently Allah is the God that so-called black people that are Muslim in America serve. Allah is the God over them too, right? But how could the Most High Power of the Bible, the God of this Bible, and Allah be the same if the God of the Bible, right here, says the Most High Power of, I'm going to say it how it's written, the Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. It didn't say nobody else. It said Abraham. Then it said Isaac, right? Those Muslims over there in Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Arabia, those places are now occupied by what we know today as Muslims, right? Or the Arabs, right? Or some people call them terrorists, right? They're in that land over there, those lands that I just listed, they're occupied by the people that come from Ishmael, right? Ask any of those people if you are a Muslim, right? If you are a Muslim, and I mean like a real Muslim, I'm not talking about the black Muslims in Philly. I ain't talking about those 5%ers. I'm talking about the Muslims. I'm talking about the race of people that the religion of Islam is attached to. Those are the people I'm talking about, which is in Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, all those places. Those people, right? They believe that they come from Ishmael. They will tell you that their holy ancestor, meaning someone of their tree, right, of their family line, they believe that is Ishmael, and they say that is Ishmael. Now, if you did not know, right, Isaac and Ishmael, they were Isaac and Ishmael, they were brothers, right? Abraham had many sons, but we're going to talk about the main two that a lot of people talk about. So you have Salakia. So you have Isaac and then you have Ishmael. They were brothers. But right here in verse 6, it didn't say the Lord God of Abraham and Ishmael. If God was over Ishmael, it would say the God of Ishmael in the Bible. So Allah and God cannot be the same. It wouldn't make any sense. Right? But it said Isaac. Does anybody know the precept to prove? Can anybody give me the precept to prove that God chose Isaac to be a God over? Can anybody give me the precept in the Bible, online or in class? Can anybody give me the precept in the Bible to prove that the Most High chose Isaac to be a God over? Anybody? Anybody? Anybody want to give it a shot? Any troopers out there? Any troopers out there coming to class, or any brothers that are hardcore studiers, man, that are biblical scholars? Any brother out there that's a biblical scholar? Any trooper out there that's a biblical scholar? Can you give me proof in the Bible to prove, right, that God chose that the Most High Power chose Isaac to be a God over? Anybody want to give it a shot? Anybody? Anybody want to give it a shot? Anybody? If you don't know, it's all right. It's Tawab. Just say, I don't know. All right? It's Tawab. It's Tawab if you don't know. Because you'll know today. All right? You'll know today. I'll give y'all the precept. All right? But if anybody want to take a shot at it, I give you guys a few more moments to answer. Not Genesis. don't know the scripture, but it's when Isaac didn't follow his brothers. Okay, not so much that. Let's see. When I look it up, it says it's about a dozen places in the Bible. The Lord God is referred to as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This name of God emphasizes the... Okay. All right. So, all right. The question was, I'll repeat the question, all right? The question is, we know that the God of Abraham is the Most High. We know that. But how also can we prove... Okay, we were focused. So we were focused on Isaac, because Isaac and Ishmael were brothers, right? I was just breaking down briefly. I sidebarred briefly that the Arabs or the Arabians or Muslims believe and know that their ancestor is Ishmael and that they come from Ishmael. And Ishmael is the brother of Isaac in the Bible. But it didn't say the Most High power of Abraham and Ishmael and Jacob. It said the power or the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Israel, right? So we're focused on Isaac to prove that the Most High chose Isaac to be a power over him. It's Hebrews chapter 11, verse 18. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 18 says, of whom it was said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called. All right. It says, I'm going to start at verse 18. Well, I'll start from verse 17. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 17. By faith Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac. And he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten son. So at this time, right, Isaac was Abraham. The reason why Isaac was Abraham's only begotten son, even though Ishmael was Abraham's firstborn son, right? Isaac was Abraham's begotten son because the Lord opened up Sarah's womb, right, for Abraham to bear child with her. All right? It was of the Lord for Abraham and Sarah to have children, and that child was Isaac. All right? And if you go back, Abraham was tried, and the Lord said, go up to the mountains and sacrifice Isaac to me. The Lord was testing Abraham. He was testing Abraham's faith. Right? He was testing Abraham's faith. He's like, man, you just gave me my son. You just gave me a son. Right? But you want me to sacrifice him. No sweat. And Abraham went, and he was going to sacrifice Isaac. But an angel came and said, you don't have to do it. Sacrifice this instead. I just wanted to try your loyalty and your faith to me. Verse 18. And whom it was said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called. So through Isaac thy seed shall be called. Seed meaning sperm, right? Seed is the sperm that comes out of a man's, area, the scrotum, his loins, right? So through that in Isaac shall thy seed be called, right? So the people that are to be called from the Most High are going to come from Isaac. That's all it's saying. Verse 19, accounting that God was able to raise him up, even from the dead, from which also he receives him in a figure. Now that's all. Now that part is referring to Christ in Hebrews chapter 11, all right, it's trying to give an example of the Lord choosing Christ. That's how the Lord chose Isaac, all right? That's all that's saying. But we're going to go back. We'll go ahead and go back. Let's get it. All right. So it says, turn again unto the Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Israel was the son of Isaac. Jacob was the son of Isaac. Jacob's new name became Israel. Through Isaac's seed shall thy name be called. Right? So through Isaac's seed shall thy name be called. Right? And that was Israel. Right? Now Isaac, he had two sons. He had Esau and he had Jacob. It didn't say through Edom's. It didn't say Edom, right? It didn't say the God of Edom, right? It didn't say that, right? It didn't say that at all. I'm reading it right now, and it says, and Israel. It didn't say Edom. It said Israel. But Edom also came from Isaac. Esau, the son of Isaac, right? Esau came from Isaac. But why isn't the Most High the God over Esau then? It said, through Isaac's seed shall thy be called, right? Through Isaac's seed shall thy name be called, right? That's what the scripture says. It says through Isaac's seed. Esau is the seed of Isaac, right? So why isn't he the God over Esau? Why did it say and Israel instead? Because God chose Israel. God chose us to be a holy people unto him. That's all. That's the answer to that question. All right. And he will return to the remnant of you. Right? And so this is right here. Right? So this was the letter that was sent out. Right? This was the letter that was sent out. And it was a commandment of the king. And this letter said, ye children of Israel, turn again unto the most high power of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Right? And he will turn. It's like he will return to the remnant of you. Right? So he will return to the remnant of you. Right? Meaning the remnants. Right? The remnant of you. That are escaped out of the hand of the kings of Assyria. So during this time, right? During this time, how can I explain it to you? This is during, I said this in the beginning of class. Right here, and you're absolutely right, sis, because Esau wasn't chosen. You're absolutely correct. So I may have said this in the beginning of class. All right? This is during the time of the Assyrian captivity. And the Assyrians took the northern kingdom. So the Assyrian took the northern kingdom into another land and oppressed the southern kingdom in our land. Right? We were being oppressed in our land too. We were all in captivity at this time. Right? And it said, he will return to the remnant of you that are escaped out of the hands of the kings of Assyria. So, there were brothers, there were sisters, right, of Israel, right, of Israel, that escaped the hands of the kings of Assyria. All right, it says that. So, some of us escaped from the captivity of Assyria. Some of us escaped. All right? Just like in America, some of us escaped captivity in the south and went to the north. Well, guess what? Some of the Israelites escaped, right, captivity and slavery out of the Assyrians. All right? And the remnant, meaning the ones that escaped, the remnant, right, the remnant of you that are escaped out of the hand of the kings of Assyria. Because not everybody made it. Not everybody escaped. All right? Verse 7. And be not ye like your fathers, and like your brethren, which trespassed against the most high power of their fathers, who therefore gave them up to desolation, as ye see. So now, this is also what the letter is saying. Be not like your forefathers. Be not like your fathers and like your brethren that went against the Lord. Do not go against the Lord. Do not sin against the Lord. The reason why we went into Assyrian captivity is because we transgressed against the Lord. We sinned against the Most High. Right? If I'm not mistaken, we were serving other gods. We were worshiping idols. That's why we went into Assyrian captivity. We were worshiping idols. We were serving other gods. All right? Just like, if you did not know, our God told us not to eat pork. Someone else's God said you can eat pork. So when you eat pork, you are serving another God. Does that make sense to everybody? Does everybody understand that concept? The God of the Bible says not to eat pork. But there is a God out there that says you can eat pork. If you start eating pork, you are serving another God. That makes sense. Now, can anybody tell me the God that says you can eat pork? Can anybody tell me that God? You can give me that religion too. The God of what? The God of what religion? Can anybody tell me? Okay, Most High Christ. It makes sense. Can anybody tell me the God of what religion tells you can eat pork? Sometimes we don't realize. Sometimes as a race of people, we don't realize we serve other gods almost every day. We don't realize that. It's the little things that we do that we don't realize that you could be serving another God and not even know it. Christianity, right? The God of Christianity. You guys are all correct. Give yourselves a hand. Absolutely correct. The God of Christianity. The God of Christianity tells you that you can eat pork. So when you eat pork, you are serving the God of Christianity. But the God of Israel, the God of this Bible, says not to eat pork. So if you don't eat pork, you're serving that God. That's clear. Right? That's clear. That's very clear. Right? Like for instance, dreadlocks. If you have dreadlocks, you are serving the god of Shiva, which is an East Indian god. Right? The Lord said not to serve other gods. And dreadlocks was never a custom or a heritage or a tradition of the Israelites to have dreadlocks. So when you do get dreadlocks, you end up serving another god. When you smoke weed, that's you serving another god. The Lord said for us not to smoke. That's in the Bible. The Lord tells us not to smoke. And when you smoke weed, you are serving another god. It all makes sense. I'll continue reading. You guys said it makes sense. So Khan, it makes sense. All right. So we went into captivity because we were serving other gods. We were worshiping idols at this time. So the Assyrians came and took us into another land and started to oppress the southern kingdom that was in the land. All right. And it says, who therefore gave them up to desolation, as ye see. So we see the outcome. We see the results. All right. We see the outcome and the results when we don't serve the Lord. When we don't keep his laws, statutes, and commandments. We suffer for it. We suffer behind the fact that we don't serve God. We don't serve the God of this Bible. We suffer from that. We suffer from not eating pork. We suffer from not eating shrimp and lobster. We suffer from Slovakia. We suffer from eating pork. I don't want to say not. I said that incorrectly. We suffer from eating pork. We suffer from eating shrimp and lobster and crab legs and seafood boils. We suffer from getting dreadlocks. We suffer from getting high and smoking weed and cracking coke, sniffing coke, whatever the hell it may be, doing shrooms and Molly and Percocets and whatever the hell it may be. Ecstasy, whatever. We suffer from that. We suffer from being homosexuals. We suffer from being lesbians. We suffer from that. And we see the desolation that the Lord, we see what the Lord gave us up to, which is desolation. We see it in America. We also seen it then. All right. Verse 8. Now be ye not stiff-necked. So the Lord says in verse 8, right? This is in the letter. Be ye not stiff-necked. Do not be stiff-necked. Do not be hard-headed. Do not be stiff-necked. Follow the Lord. Follow his laws, statutes, commandments. Stop eating pork. Stop eating shrimp. Stop eating lobster, right? Keep his high holy days. Keep his feast days. Stop celebrating Christmas. Stop celebrating New Year's. Stop celebrating Valentine's Day. Stop celebrating Easter. Stop celebrating Halloween. Stop celebrating the 4th of July. Right? We need to stop this. Now be ye not stiff-necked, as your fathers were. Salaki. So, don't be stiff-necked like your fathers. Our fathers were stiff-necked. They decided to serve other gods. They decided to worship idols. They decided to become Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, 5%ers, whatever the case may be. We are not to be like that. We are to be holy. We are to be worshipers of the God of Israel and the God of Israel only. All right? But yield yourselves unto the Lord and enter into his sanctuary, which he hath sanctified forever, and serve the Most High your power, that the fierceness of his wrath may turn away from you. Right? So it says, yield yourselves, meaning submit yourselves unto the Most High, and enter into his sanctuary, meaning enter into his holy place, which he hath sanctified forever, meaning he made this place holy for you forever. This was supposed to be your holy place forever. Right? This is what it's supposed to be for. And serve the Most High your power. Right? Your. That's a possessive pronoun because it's our God. It's not everybody's God. The Most High of this Bible, it's our God. That's why it says your God. That the fierceness of his wrath may turn away from you. Meaning if we serve the Most High and we serve the God of this Bible, his wrath and his fierceness, right? He'll turn it away from us. He'll turn it away from us. All right? That's what he's going to do. That's what he will do. All right? Let's continue. Verse 9. For if ye turn again unto the Most High. So if we turn again, meaning we come back to the Lord again, right? Your brethren and your children shall find compassion before them that lead them captive. So it says, for if ye turn again unto the Most High, your brethren and your children shall find compassion before them that led them, that led them captive. Right? So that they shall come again into this land. For the Most High, your power, is gracious and merciful, and will not turn away his face from you, if ye return unto him. So it says, your brethren and your children shall find compassion before them that led them captive. What does that mean? Anybody want to give a guess to that? For if ye turn again unto the Most High, your brethren and your children shall find compassion before them that led them captive. What does that mean? What does that mean? Anybody? Anybody want to give it a shot? What does it mean? What does it mean, your brethren and your children shall find compassion before them that led them captive? Salaki. Anybody want to give it a shot? No sweat. Anybody else? Anybody else want to give it a shot? It says, for if ye turn again unto the Most High. So I'm going to ask this question first. What does it mean to turn again to the Most High? What does it mean to turn back to the Most High? What does that mean? What does that mean? Okay. All right. Right. Follow his laws. Right. That's absolutely correct. You guys are correct. To follow his laws, his statutes, and his commandments. That's absolutely correct. That is very true. That is very true. Following his laws and commandments. Right. Right. So anyone that said follow his laws, statutes, commandments, to obey the Most High, etc., that's what it means. If ye turn again unto the Most High. Now your brethren and your children shall find compassion before them that led them captive. So, who led us captive? Who led us captive? Anybody? Who led us captive? Okay, that's true, the other nations. But in this context, who led us captive? What nation led us captive during this time? Sulaki. Who led us captive during this time? That's correct. The Assyrians. That's correct. The Assyrians. Now my next question is, who allowed that to happen? Who allowed that to happen? Not okay. The so-called white man led us captive, and the Africans and the Arabs led us captive in this captivity that we're in now. I'm referring to the captivity that we're in during the time of 2 Chronicles chapter 30. So the sister is correct, the Assyrians. But who allowed, now my next question is, who allowed the Assyrians to lead us captive? Who allowed that to happen? That's correct. The Most High. That is correct. The Most High. That is absolutely correct. The Most High allowed it to happen. So now, the Most High, exactly. Not our leaders. The Most High allowed. Not so much our leaders, right? The Most High allowed the Assyrians to take us captive because we were sinning against the Most High. And we were not keeping his laws, statutes, and commandments. But if we do keep his laws, statutes, and commandments, your brethren and your children shall find compassion before them that led them captive. What does that mean? That means our oppression is going to be let up. We are going to stop suffering. We are going to stop going through police brutality. We're going to stop seeing fathers not being in the home, and fathers and mothers being strung out on crack or coke and being some drug addict. We're going to stop seeing the suffering of our people being murdered by our oppressors. We're going to stop seeing the suffering and the violence against the kingdom of heaven through police brutality in America's government at this time during the government of the Assyrians. We're going to stop seeing that. We're going to stop seeing our sisters being whores and sluts and prostitutes. We're going to stop seeing that. We're no longer going to go through the suffering of seeing pedophiles rape and molest children. We're going to stop seeing that. All right? We're going to stop seeing these horrible, horrific things. We're going to stop seeing homosexuality being so prevalent within our communities. We're going to stop seeing the suffering of black men being weak and being feminized and being such a goddamn coward. This is what we're going to see. This is what we're going to see. All right? This is what we will see. Everybody understands? That's called compassion. The Lord is going to have compassion on us. It's not magic. Right? The Lord is going to have a conscience towards our oppression. This is not magic. All right? It's not magic. All right? Everybody understands that it's not magic. The Lord is going to put his hand over us, and he's going to start protecting us. All right? Let's continue reading. So that they shall come again into this land. Right? So shall we come again into this land. So what the Lord is going to do is stop the oppression so we can come back to our land. For the Most High your power is gracious and merciful, and will not turn away his face from you if ye return unto him. So if we come back, meaning it's a condition, meaning if we come back, the Lord is going to protect us and take us out of our captivity and stop the oppression against the Israelites by the Assyrians. Stop the oppression against so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. That's what the Lord is going to do. If we return to him. If we come back to his laws, his statutes, and his commandments. All right? Because he's gracious and he's merciful. He has compassion on us. So, verse 10. So the post passed from city to city through the country of Ephraim and Manasseh, even unto Zebulun. But they laughed them to scorn and mocked them. Now, it says, so the post passed from city to city through the country to Ephraim and Manasseh, even unto Zebulun. But they laughed them to scorn and mocked them. So when they got this letter, they said, I ain't stopped smoking weed. I ain't stopping smoking this for what? For some Passover? I don't give a damn about that. You want me to stop eating what? Pork, shrimp, and lobster? You want me to stop serving the God of Christianity? You want me to stop being a Muslim? You want me to stop being some Buddhist or some 5%er and come to Jerusalem and serve God? I don't serve the God. I don't care about this. I don't give a damn about that. They laughed and scorned at them. All right? They said they ain't doing it. They ain't doing that. Verse 11. Nevertheless, divers of Asher and Manasseh and of Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. Right? So there were some. There were some that said, nah, I ain't going. I ain't doing it. I ain't coming to Jerusalem. Then there were some of Asher and Manasseh and Zebulun that humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. There were some that said, you know what, I will serve the Lord and come to Jerusalem. I will do that. I will keep the Lord's Passover this month. I will serve the Lord. That's what I will do. Right? Humble ourselves. Verse 12. Also in Judah, the hand of God was to give them one heart, to do the commandment of the king and of the princes by the word of the Lord. It says, also in Judah, the hand of God was to give them one heart, to do the commandment of the king and of the princes by the word of the Most High. So the purpose of this was to get all Israel to be one heart, to serve the Most High. What is that saying? What does it mean to be one heart? Right? Meaning being in the same accord. Right? I'm going to answer for time's sake. To be on the same accord. We as the nation of Israel, we are to serve the Most High and serve God and keep His laws, statutes, and commandments. We are to be in one accord. We are to have one heart. All right? Verse 13. And there assembled at Jerusalem. Right, one-minded. Right. And there assembled at Jerusalem much people to keep the feast of unleavened bread in the second month, a very great congregation. Now, this right here during this time, right, we're also, because the Lord's Passover is for one day, and then after the Lord's Passover, we are to keep unleavened bread, right? Right now, we are in unleavened bread, and we are keeping that feast. How do you keep it? All right? Make sure you get all the leavening at your house. Make sure you eat no bread this week, and you are to eat unleavened bread every day for 7 days until the closing of this feast. All right? Verse 14. And they arose and took away the altars that were in Jerusalem, and all the altars for incense took they away, and cast them in the brook Kidron. All right. So it says they arose and took away the altars that were in Jerusalem, and all the altars for incense they took away, and cast them in the brook of Kidron. Verse 15. All right. Then they killed the Passover. All right. Salaki. Does anybody, I want to make sure I answer this, Salaki, or if anybody knows. All right. Does anybody know what the brook of Kidron is? Okay. Nobody knows what Kidron is? Kidron? Or Kidron? Okay. To make this make sense. Verse 14. And they arose and took away the altars that were in Jerusalem. So they took the altars in Jerusalem. And all the altars for incense took they away. Right? So why, now I'm going to ask this question. Can anybody give a guess why they would take out the altars? And take out the incense holders? Why would you think they would have to do that? Why does anybody want to give a guess? Why would they cast the altars and the incense? Why would they take them away? Okay. Con. Because we couldn't, right, Con. You would have to read the verse above as well. Well, verses above in the beginning when it talked about the priest, right? Let me get it. It talks about the priest above not fully sanctifying themselves. And they arose and took away. It says, and they arose and took away the altars that were in Jerusalem. And all the altars for incense took they away and cast them in the brook of Kidron, because so that we couldn't serve the Lord. So we couldn't sacrifice to the Most High. They took it away and they threw it into the rivers of Kidron. The river of Kidron is a stream east of Jerusalem. Right? So there's a body of water. It's a stream. And it was the brook of Kidron. Right? It's east of Jerusalem. And so they took the altars, they took the incense, and they threw them into the water. Verse 15. Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the second month. And the priests and the Levites were ashamed and sanctified themselves and brought in the burnt offerings into the house of the Most High. So in verse 15 it says they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the second month. Does anybody know what it means to kill the Passover? Anybody want to give a guess? What does it mean to kill the Passover? Are we literally killing the Lord's Passover? Right? What does it mean to kill the Passover? There you go. Anybody else want to give it a shot? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right. So you guys are pretty much on track. All right. You guys are pretty much there. All right. Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the second month, because we were supposed to keep the Lord's Passover. But how could we keep the Lord's Passover if you took our altars and our incense and just threw it into the water? How could we keep it? Right? And the priests and the Levites were ashamed. That's the reason why they were ashamed. Because we weren't at the now, right? They killed the Passover. So now we're ashamed like, man. So, but now, and sanctified themselves. Meaning they still made themselves holy. They still made themselves holy. And brought in the burnt offerings into the house of the Most High. It didn't stop us from serving the Lord. I pray you understand that this is, if you are a priest of the Most High, if you come into this school and you become a priest, you serve the Lord and do the work of the Lord no matter what. The priests of this Bible, their altars and their incense were thrown in a goddamn river. And they said, we're still going to serve the Lord. We are still going to sanctify ourselves, meaning to make ourselves holy and serve the Lord. You are not going to stop us from serving the Most High Power and keeping the Lord's Passover. You're not going to keep us from serving God. You're not going to keep us from serving the Most High. We did it here. We also did it when we were in the captivity of the Greeks. We did it in Rome. And we're doing it right now in America. No one's going to stop the Lord's Passover. We are going to keep the Lord's Passover no matter what. No matter what you try and make us to do. It doesn't matter. We're going to keep the Lord's Passover. We're still going to sanctify ourselves unto the Lord, make ourselves holy. Verse 16, and they stood in their place after their manner, according to the law of Moses, the man of God. The priest sprinkled the blood, which they received of the hand of the Levites. So we still sanctified ourselves, and we still went into the house of the Lord. The house of the Lord referring to the temple, the sanctuary, etc., is referring to the house of the Most High. That's the house of the Lord. The tabernacles of God, that's the house of the Most High. That's the house of the Lord. All right. So as priests, according to the law, we still stayed strong. All right. According to the law of Moses, the man of God. Right. So we still held on to what Moses gave to us, which was the law. We held strong on that law. As priests, we stood on it. Verse 17. For there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified. Right? For there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified. Now this is talking about the congregation, right? Now, can anybody tell me why there were not many sanctified in the congregation? Does anybody know what would that mean? For there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified. Anybody want to give a guess? What does it mean to not be sanctified? Well, okay, I'm going to ask this question. Maybe you guys may or may not know. What does it mean to be sanctified? Does anybody know? What does it mean to be sanctified? Now, to give you a hint, do not think Christianity. And what would make you not clean? Right? Sanctified meaning clean, right? Or holy, right? So what does it mean? So how would you not be clean? How would you not be holy? What would make you not clean? What would make you not clean? Anybody? What would make you not clean? All right. There you go. Right. Serving of the gods. Sin. Right. Breaking God's laws, statutes, and commandments. Now, okay. Now here we go. So, for there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified, meaning there were sinners among the congregation. Right? Right. Smoking weed, that's a sin. Breaking commandments, right, that's a sin. Right? For there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified. Right? Meaning they were breaking God's law. These were sinners amongst the congregation. They served other gods. They were murderers. They were thieves. They smoked weed. All right? The gist of it, they were breaking God's laws. Eating pork, shrimp, and lobster, all of that. Right? Therefore, the Levites had the charge of the killing of the Passovers for every one that was not clean, to sanctify them unto the Most High. Now, why? Now it says killing the Passovers, right? Killing the Passovers is referring to killing the lambs, right? Does anybody know? Okay, you guys may not know this, but I'm gonna teach it to you guys. If you were a sinner, all right, this is. We don't do this now. Because you would have to read the New Testament and you have to read the book of Hebrews. But in the times of Moses and in the old times like this, if you were a sinner, you would bring a offering to the Lord. It would usually be a lamb, a bullock, all right, turtle doves, right? And you would sacrifice that unto the Lord because you sinned. All right, this goes under the law of if you transgressed against the Lord, and then you would pay for your transgression. Not just a sacrifice, but you would also pay. You would literally pay money if you sinned against the Most High. You would be fined. All right, you would be fined. You would give an offering to the Lord. And so at this time, this is what the Levites are practicing. This is what the priests are doing. If you were a sinner against the Most High, you would bring your offering unto the Lord. And you would get your best bullock with no blemish, your best lamb with no blemish, and you would give it to the Most High. Now, the purpose of this was so you would not sin. All right? So you would not sin. Now you're probably thinking, well, what does sacrificing your best lamb or your best bullock would do? Like, what would that do? Listen, as Israelites, we worked on the land. We made our money off of agriculture. We were farmers. We dealt on the land. We raised cattle. We raised animals. Chickens and cows and bulls and lambs and sheep and all of that. We raised cattle. All right. We were very big on agriculture. So if we sinned against the Lord and the law was to give our best lamb, that's us losing something. Everybody understands? Kanollah. You would be if you're giving something that makes you money, something that you're losing something. The purpose of that was for you to not sin again. That was the purpose at that time, because you were losing something valuable to you, which is your best. Because with no, lamb is very, bullocks, sheep, all that. Your best that's what makes you money. All right, that's what makes you money. That's what's paying the quote unquote the bills in the house or whatever the hell it may be. All right, and Israelite, listen, and Israelites, we hate losing money. We hate it. We kill each other over $20. You understand that, right? Us blacks, Hispanics, and Americans, we kill each other over just $20. So imagine losing something that's going to make you thousands of dollars because you couldn't stop stealing, or you couldn't stop eating pork or shrimp and lobster. Imagine just losing that because you could not control your lust and your filth, right? Like the best bull would be many future generations of perfect bulls. That's generational wealth through agriculture, right? Your lamb, your sheep, your bullock, all of that. It would just build wealth and build generational wealth. But you're losing that. The purpose of that, right? The purpose of the sacrifice was to make you understand, hey, listen, I can't afford to do this. Let me keep God's law, statutes, commandments. It's not hard to stop eating pork, but it is harder to lose what I've worked so hard for. That's hard. It's easy to stop eating shrimp and lobster, but it is harder. It is harder to live when I don't have my best because I had to give it to the Lord. All right? Everybody understands? Kanollah. I'll keep reading. All right? So now, for there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified. All right? There were the Levites had the charge of the killing of the Passovers for everyone that was not clean, to sanctify them unto the Lord. Because before you came into the house of the Most High, it was in our law that if you were a sinner, you were taken out of the congregation. That's another point I wanted to hit. In our law, if you were a sinner, you may have heard this before, if you were a sinner, or you broke God's laws, or if you were not clean, right? if you were not clean, right, you were taken out of the congregation. You could not be around the congregation if you were not clean. You would be separated amongst the congregation and outside of the camp if you were some sodomite or some murderer or some thief, right? Some of these laws were death penalties too. So you were definitely out of the congregation if you sinned against the Lord. All right? That was our law. So if you wanted to keep God's statutes, if you wanted to keep the Lord's Passover, you had to be clean. So this was the priest making you clean so you can come into the congregation and come into the house of the Most High to serve God. Everybody understands that, right? Does everybody get that? Kanala. I'm going to read verse 18, but you can still answer the question. Kanala. Verse 18. For a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun, right? These are all the tribes of the northern kingdom, or some of the tribes of the northern kingdom, had not cleansed themselves, yet did they eat the Passover. Otherwise, then it was written. So some of them, they were not cleansed. They were not clean. But they still came and ate the Passover. They kept God's Passover, the Lord's Passover. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the good Most High pardon every one. So Hezekiah the king said, hey, don't worry about all that. I'm a pray, right? Pray for them. I prayed for them, right? That the Lord saying the Most High pardons everyone. Meaning, what does it mean to pardon? Does anybody know what it means to pardon something? Think legal. This is talking about the law here, right? This is talking about God's laws, right? How do you pardon something? Legally, what does it mean to pardon? Does anybody know? For time, we're at 9:10. For time's sake, you can still give the answer. Like Abel bringing his firstling of his flock to the Most High. Right, similar to that. Right. All right. Something similar to that. So what does it mean to pardon legally? Okay. You can say forgive, but that I want to give more so of a legal sense. So for time's sake, I'll say it. It's to excuse your offense. Meaning the offense that you committed is excused. Right? It's wiped away. It's taken away. It's an excused offense. The Lord pardoned you this one time. And even though you didn't cleanse yourself, even though you didn't give me the sacrifice, just this one time, I'm going to pardon your offense. I'm going to excuse your offense. Right? And here's why the Lord did it. In verse 19. That prepared so I'm going to start from the bottom of verse 18. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the Most High pardoned everyone. So the Most High excused everyone's offense. That prepared his heart to seek God, the Most High power of his fathers, though he be not cleansed according to the purification of the sanctuary. So the purification of the sanctuary, right? Even though you are to give a sacrifice to the Lord to be clean, that's the purification of the sanctuary. In order for you to enter into God's house, into the congregation, into the tabernacle of the Most High, you are to sacrifice to the Lord so you can be pardoned of your sin and to sin no more. But this one time right here in the Old Testament, this ain't the New Testament, this is the Old Testament, right? This is not the New Testament. This is in the Old Testament that the Lord pardoned your sin even though you didn't give a sacrifice because you at heart wanted to serve me. Everybody understands? The northern tribe, it's like the northern tribes, some of the northern tribes of the northern kingdom, they had the heart to serve the Most High. Because the majority of the northern tribes, they didn't want to serve God. That's why they went into captivity. The southern kingdom, which were the southern tribes like Judah, Benjamin, and remnants of Levi, they mostly kept the law and served God. But the other northern tribes, they were more so wicked, all right? Meaning they were more sinful. They didn't really practice keeping God's laws, statutes, and commandments in that area. That's why they were taken out of the land of Israel into the land of Assyria, all right? And that's during this time, all right? But in here in the Old Testament, that prepared his heart to seek God, the most high power of his fathers, though he be not cleansed according to the purification of the sanctuary. So even though there was no sacrifice made for your sin, the purpose, this is what this scripture is saying too, right? It was never about the sacrifice. Everybody understands? It was never about sacrifice. It was never about giving a lamb. It was never about giving your best bull. It was never about giving your best bullock with no blemish. It was never about giving your best lamb with no blemish. It was never giving your turtle doves to sacrifice to the Lord. It was never about that. But what was it about? For you to have a heart to serving the Most High, which is to do what? To keep his laws, his statutes, and his commandments. Everybody understand? Kanullah. Everybody get it? This is talking about the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. This is during this time. The purpose of this is to serve the Most High, to serve the God that took us out of Egypt and gave us his laws, his statutes, and his commandments. All right? All right? And this right here is in the Old Testament. I didn't have to go to the New Testament to tell you that you have to have a heart towards the Lord and had nothing to do with sacrificing. I didn't have to go to the New Testament for that. But this is where the New Testament gets it from. All right? This is where the New Testament gets it from. It was never about sacrifice. Now, of course, some of the classes will break down about Christ, all right, dying for our sins and giving us the chance to come back, right? All of that, right, in the New Testament breaks down that too as well, all right? But this right here is this is before Christ. Before Christ, the Lord said, "Still come into my sanctuary and serve me, even though you didn't make a sacrifice." That's in the Old Testament. Now, by the way, the reason why I'm saying that is because that's abnormal. You were to make a sacrifice. That's why the priests were so. That's why in the scriptures above, the priests were, they were trying to sanctify everybody, right? But Hezekiah is like, hey. It's not about that. We're all coming together to serve the Most High, and the Most High is pardoning us so we can come back to him. These are brothers and sisters coming from lands to Jerusalem to serve the Most High. Stop worrying about that sacrifice. We're serving the Lord here. We went into captivity because we didn't serve the Lord. But we're coming together to serve the Lord. All right? With that, I'll get the announcements. All right. All right. Isupk security announcements. We are the Isupk. Start at 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding General Yohana. Rule for new brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers 18:21, Malachi chapter 3, verse 8 through 10. Ma'ashera means tenth in the Hebrew. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Give the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory, whatsoever amount you would like. Upcoming holy convocations. Right now we are in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. All right, right now we are in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Make sure you have all the yeast out of your house. All right. If you did not know to take all the yeast out of your house or anything that rises that has leavened in it, if you don't know, if you didn't know, now you know. Take it out of your house now. Do it now. All right. Of course, we knew before time, right? Okay, especially like the priest, and if you come to class every day, of course you probably knew. But if you did not know, all right, pardon yourself now, all right, Salakia, and get it out of your house, all right? All right? All right, just get it out of your house. All right? With that, I say Amayim, which means to stand. All right? We're going to give a courteous salute to the brothers. Men of Israel, Amayim Shabbat. Amayim Barak. Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua Bakatham. Yadim Matah. Sar La'agwapi, which means turn and face the sisters. All right, we're going to give a courteous salute. Slakia. We're going to give a courtesy salute to the sisters. All right. Men of Israel, Amayim Shabbat. Amayim Barak. Yahweh Shema Alathan Ba'ashim Yahushua. Yadim Matah. With that, class dismissed.